Hello fellow FPL managers and welcome to another video. This time we're looking at Game Week 35 and reviewing the Game Week 34 Brighton debacle, the wildcard killer from last week. A lot of people saved their wildcard specifically for Game Week 34 and it didn't pan out too well for them. As for me, this is one of the times where I actually had another game week, a good game week, when a lot of people seem to have been struggling a little bit. And that's FPL. That's what I've been saying all season. Every time that I've been, just a fraction of one call, one vice captaincy over captaincy call, and it happens all the time. And that's football. You can't call it. It's easy looking at hindsight saying how poorly Brighton performed and how people messed up their wild cards, but there was a lot of surprise results over the last game week or two, as there has been always in football. So try to keep heart. There's only a few games left for this season. So as for me, myself, I almost had a nightmare start to the week. So first of all, Jamie Vardy's lovely party came to an abrupt end at home to Newcastle, where you can see that they got beat 1-0, and he missed a golden chance as well in that game. So straight off, I had a bad feeling about this weekend. I thought, oh no, people have played wildcards, people have played free hit chips or whatever. I'm clinging onto my bench boost for I think another week or two, and I thought that felt like a bad omen. And then I took out Pogba, because he hadn't been playing particularly well. He was playing deeper. There seems to be some sort of rift between him and Ole Gunnar Solskjaer now. Talks of him moving to Real Madrid. And I brought in Son again. And every time I've had Son, he's either not played or done, he's done nothing. And then when I've taken him out, he's gone on these ridiculous runs. So I brought him in, and of course he didn't start. And then I thought, okay, don't let him come on then. He's my captain. Sterling is my vice captain, so please don't bring him on. You're beating Huddersfield. Give him a rest. What do? 88th minute, bring him on. And I'm thinking, oh my God, there's my captaincy again. Screwed for the week. I've got Sterling at Palace, who bagged 14 points. And I'm thinking, oh my God. And it took him 4 minutes to get an assist. So at least he did something in such a limited time. That's why he's many people's favourite FPL player for this season. So on top of that, Fraser, part of that amazing Bournemouth thumping away at Brighton. Firmino didn't do much, but Mane again amongst the goals for me, and Alexander-Arnold. So pretty much everyone did. I had a couple of big hitters and other people blanked. Hazard, I'm not surprised he blanked. And that's why it brings me on to my transfers. And Hazard has made way. I've had him for pretty much all the season, but with the remaining fixtures left, and with this being a double game week, I did say I wanted to switch to Eriksen, which is exactly what I've done. He's been on a pretty decent run of form. If you have a look at his recent games, 6, 14, 6. Now, I've actually been a big critic of Spurs this season, but it feels like when it's crunch time and they need to get that top 4, the last few years they've got the clutch and they've actually done well to keep in that top 4. So I do feel with the remaining fixtures and with a good double game week, I know they're away against Manchester City, so anything that they can pick up in that game is a bonus, because I'm looking at that home game against Brighton. I know the Champions League is tonight, so I always tell people to hold off on transfers, but I make my videos early and I'd already made my decisions. So if Spurs go out tonight, they're probably going to be playing them all season. They might again drop Son or Eriksen for the game at home to Brighton if they go through against Manchester City. So keep your eyes on that if you've not made your transfers just yet. And Jamie Vardy has made way, because I did mention when I brought him in, I think it was 8 game weeks ago, for that lovely run of fixtures they had, I said for the last few games of the season he would be leaving. I've got him out before the West Ham away game because they've not really got anything to play for. It's a dead rubber game, and I do feel that a double game week replacement of bringing in Lacazette, who didn't play against Watford, something that Aubameyang criticised because he actually said to the media that he wants to play with Lacazette. He feels he plays better, but Unai Emery said that he needed a rest. Well, there you go. He's had a rest, and he's got a double game week, Palace and Wolves, and I do feel Wolves will be a difficult tie for them. Wolves do really well against top sides, but I just feel a double game week against Palace and Wolves and the remainder of the season makes him a good like for Jamie Vardy, so long as he plays. This is my risky transfer, I think, because I'm just worried that he's not going to play. For future transfers, we'll be looking at the fixture difficulty when I talk about the predictions. But for me, Lacazette should be staying till the rest of the season. And then my future transfers, Pereira will be going out because, like I said, Leicester have a real tough end of the season against title chasing or Champions League chasing teams, which I don't see them getting clean sheets there. But the rest of the team pretty much have good fixtures for the rest of the season. So I'd be surprised. Maybe change Firmino out. I would like to bring in Callum Wilson from Bournemouth. So a surprise change might be something like taking the money hit, taking out Firmino and bringing in Callum Wilson just because of Bournemouth's fixtures. But we'll wait and see about that one. I won't have to make any decisions just yet. So moving on to the predictions from last week, and unsurprisingly, it wasn't a particular good prediction week for me because it was pretty tough to call. A lot of people played, as I said earlier, their wildcards or a free hit chip, and a lot of people suffered this week. I scored 66 points, but the average was 54. So considering I don't think I did that particularly well, there's no real big, it didn't feel like a big scoring game week considering so many people play their wildcards. I did see a stat on Reddit where people said those who did no chips at all scored higher points than people who played their wildcards. So it just goes to show you that nothing is an exact science. Everyone makes different reasons and different decisions all the time. For example, you've seen people triple captaining Luka Moura. You've seen people getting crazy. I saw a high score. Someone triple captained the Newcastle goalkeeper this week, and he kept a clean sheet. And I think it bonus points as well. So it's crazy. That's why sometimes I like doing weird moves like that. Not going, because I always say you're trying to just do better than everyone else, not just score high points in a week. You're trying to get points where other people don't. So how many people do you know triple captain Luka Moura? How many people do you know that triple captain the Newcastle goalkeeper? Not many. So especially this stage of the season when you've not really got a lot to lose, if you are, unless you're fighting in sort of the top 1,000 or the top 10,000, try something different and just grab some points, and someone might, you might strike it lucky. But looking at predictions for last week, so Manchester City, they get like a so-so arrow because they did play Sane, they did start Aguero, who went off injured, and they did start Sterling, who did wonderfully. He got 2 goals in that game. But again, the goalkeeper, Ederson, got dropped, and Bernardo Silva got dropped as well, Mr. Reliable, the one who you think is always going to play. So I did mention the reason why I was against Manchester City choosing them to pick is Pep Roulette, and the fact that they've got a really big game to turn over against Spurs in the Champions League. I just felt as though it wasn't worth the risk, and a couple of people did get dropped, but the big hitters, Aguero and Sterling, did play. And Sterling did bang, but Aguero went off injured. You can just see behind me as well, Aubameyang, I thought he was going to get bullied a little bit, but that early goal against Watford, so he did score, he got 6 points. So, again, it's wrong. He did do well, they did get a goal, but there were a lot of criticisms towards Emery's tactics and his dropping of Lacazette, and he wanted to hold the ball in the middle. I didn't feel like it was a particularly good game, but Aubameyang got the point. So if you've got Aubameyang, then it wasn't a bad game week. And Doherty, I did say that avoid Wolves' defence, and they actually got beat 3-1 away at Southampton. And Wolves seem to have this problem. They do amazing against the top sort of 10 teams, and then the bottom side of the table, when they play them, they struggle. And I think if you're already looking towards next season, you're not going to get Raul Jimenez for, I think he started at something like 5.5 million. He was one of the cheaper strikers. You're not going to get, because Wolves are going to finish in the top 10. They're all going to go up. Doherty's price is going to skyrocket as well. Patricio's, they're all going to go up. So I do feel that actually, in terms of real life, Wolves might struggle next season because the big teams will give them that respect and won't see them as a lesser team. And the smaller teams keep beating them. So I would be avoiding Wolves really next season for that second season syndrome. But we're getting ahead of ourselves. Going down to players to pick, of course, Spurs winning 4-0. Luka Moura hat-trick. And a Wanyama goal, which is an absolute rarity. But Eriksen got an assist. Son got an assist. So did Sissoko. And a few people took a punt on Llorente, and rightly so. He did pick up an assist. And he almost scored a really nice goal when the ball came in, and he sort of flicked it up and then hit the, I think it was a crossbar that he hit after that. So again, a good week for Spurs there. And I said they do finish the season strongly. They do seem to win at the end of the season when it matters if they're looking for that top 4 Champions League finish. And I think that's going to be the same this season. Vardy, I mentioned earlier, let me down at home to Newcastle. Didn't even score. Really surprising. Leicester. Not surprised that Newcastle got something from the game, let alone 3 points, but I am surprised that Leicester didn't get a goal at home. And then Raul Jimenez, I mentioned earlier, Wolves getting beat 3-1 at Southampton, and Jimenez had nothing to do with the goals. Going on to the players to risk, Troy Deeney, I did say he liked to fight against Arsenal, I did say he liked to rough them up, but that was just ridiculous. Early red card, minus points. People also backed him as well, must have had the same idea I did. Got a red card and absolute had a nightmare and led to Foster had a howler as well, and then Watford didn't win the game. But unfortunately, we've got that situation with Watford, which I'll talk about when we come to the suggestions and predictions, that Watford don't really have a lot to play for, and they're going to be maybe resting players if they're going into the FA Cup final. But anyway, moving on, Richarlison. Terrible result for Everton. Again, they're a dead rubber team now. They don't really seem to be fighting for anything. They've been a bit meh all season, considering, I think it was it 2 years ago or 3 years ago, they've been bought out and backed by a lot of money. They've just not had any pizzazz, any oomph, any flair. That's why they brought Richarlison in for all that money. Remember, this guy is worth like £50 million they brought him in for, and he didn't deliver, and it was against a side that's already relegated. I did mention that maybe the pressure's off and they can just relax, but I did still feel that they'd get thumped. And losing 2-0, not even scoring against one of the leakiest defences in English football right now, is not a good sign for Everton or Marco Silva. And finally, Brighton. I know I said risk them again. They've had all these double game weeks and they've absolutely blown it. Brighton have blown it. They are imploding. I cannot really recall a team that looked relatively safe just destroy themselves at 5-0 Bournemouth and then getting beaten 2-0 at home by Cardiff City, relegation rivals just below them. Yeah, they've still got a game in hand, but do you think they're going to win for anything else in the season? Because their remaining fixtures are not nice, which comes on to this game week's predictions. And we'll just carry on. We talk about Brighton. They do not have a good set of fixtures left. If we have a look at the fixture difficulty for the last few fixtures, Brighton have got a double game week again. Away at Wolves, don't fancy him for that. Away at Spurs, definitely don't fancy them for that. They've got a huge game at home to Newcastle, who are pretty much safe, but they're still not going to take the foot off the gas. And then they've got Arsenal, Manchester City. So you're looking at their last few fixtures, and Newcastle's the one that they have to win. But I'm looking at it thinking, where are they going to get any more points here? And I'm not too sure where they're going to get the rest of those points. So Brighton is definitely a team that I would be avoiding right now. And you can see as well behind me, just there, Leicester City, I mentioned this before, had a really good run of fixtures. They've got West Ham away. You could expect them to get something because you never know what's going to happen in a West Ham game. But then the rest of the season, Arsenal at home, they want Champions League football. City away, they're fighting for the title. Chelsea at home, they want Champions League football. So it's not going to be a good start there. But people like Jamie Vardy do like playing against big teams. They like upsetting the apple cart. So there might be something in it for them there. But personally, from a pure facts and figures and statistics point of view, I would be avoiding Leicester City. And you can see as well, Burnley. So with 4 weeks left to go, now you're sort of making the transfers that'll last you for the season, and you can make 1 or 2 transfers. And similar to what I've been saying, Burnley have a tough end of the season. Away at Chelsea, home at City, away at Everton, which they might get something away at Everton, and then at home at Arsenal. So similar to what I've just said about Burnley and Brighton and Leicester, not just for this game week being a little bit tough, but the rest of the season. So I wouldn't bring players in now and then take them back out again when they play for these sort of teams. It's all right to sort of bring in a City or Chelsea or Arsenal or Manchester United or Liverpool player in for a week and take them out because they can make a difference. But if you're not going to bring in a Burnley player for a week and then take them out when you've got other parts to deal with. So I would be avoiding those 3 teams for the rest of the season as well as this week. Players to pick, I've got to go for Son. They've got a double game week this week. Yeah, I said before, they're playing Manchester City away, so anything from there would be great. But then home against Brighton, it's difficult to avoid sort of picking a Spurs player here. Wilson, going to Bournemouth's last few games. They've got Fulham, Southampton, Tottenham and Palace. So I feel like Fulham at home, Bournemouth had a really great fixture. They thumped Brighton away from home, and I do feel like Wilson had a great game in that match as well. I think bringing some Bournemouth players, 1 or 2, would be pretty good for the rest of the season. And then finally, Raul Jimenez going to Wolves. I've got 2 home games. It's a double game week for Wolves. Brighton at home, and you would expect him to get something in that. And then Arsenal at home, you might expect him to get something in that as well, because as we mentioned before, Wolves play really good football and they play really well against the top sides. And I think that they will do they'll play very well at home against Arsenal, who at times as well can crumble. They're known as bottlers. I know people say Spurs are, but I do feel like Arsenal bottle it just as much, if not more. So he would be in my place to pick. Going to play to risk. So Lacazette is, I think it's 11% ownership, 11.6% ownership. So he's still a pretty good differential. He's less than 15%. Is he going to play? That's the only worry. But if he does play, not just this week, but for the rest of the season, you've got Palace and Wolves, double game week for game week 35, and then Leicester, Brighton, Burnley for the rest of the season. So he might be a good one to keep in the side if you don't want to splash out on Aubameyang. And then you can see Eriksen as well. Surprisingly, Eriksen for me, 8.3% ownership, considering he's hauled for the last, he's returned in the last 3 game weeks, and with a double game week coming up and good fixtures for the rest of the season with Spurs fighting for the top 4, I'm surprised his ownership's as low as it is. But I would definitely be back in Eriksen for the remainder of the season, not just for this double game week. And then finally, you can see a real outside punt is going to go to Andre Gray at Watford. Now, a reason for this, he hasn't played too much this season, but with Deeney suspended, I would have suggested Deulofeu. But the problem is he's got a yellow marker at the minute. He didn't play the last game. He's still got a bit of a knock. He's unsure if he's going to play. But in terms of fixtures, they've got Huddersfield away and Southampton at home. Double game week this game week. And for the rest of the season, they have, you can see down at the bottom here, Wolves, then Chelsea, then West Ham. So the rest of the season fine, but just for game week 35, to bring in someone who should start away at Huddersfield and home to Southampton. And if you have a look here, Pereira, he's got a flag. Deulofeu, he's got a flag. Deeney suspended. Is he going to go for success? Because Gray played 90 minutes at home against Arsenal. He played 45 the game before and got he got 2 assists. So I am just thinking, for an outside punt at 5.9 million with a player that's got a nice double game week, I would be surprised if you didn't maybe have a punt on him for this week. So that's going to be my video for this week. Let me know what you guys are thinking and feeling about the game week 34. Did you play your wild card or any chips? How was your game week? And how are you feeling for the rest of the season? Any moves that you think that I should make, or what are you going to make for the rest of this season? Because I am pretty happy. I did, like I said, I did look at the fixture difficulty chart weeks and weeks ago, and I did start to align who's going to play. Even my defense, as sort of weak as it looks at times, they actually have some pretty nice fixtures for the rest of this season that sort of combine pretty well. So, for example, Wan-Bissaka's got a difficult game week against Arsenal, and then the rest of the season for Palace isn't too bad. So let me know what you think in the comments below, guys. Hopefully you enjoyed the video and found it useful. If you did, maybe like and subscribe. And as always, have a good one.